Hey guys, welcome back to another scary Saturday, or is it spooky Saturday? I can't remember. Anyway, so this is the second part of the series. So this time I got a recommendation about this YouTuber called Snarled. This is a playlist. They said check out the Ghost Guide. So now let's see what we can find here. The Flight of the Krasu, El Silbon. I already watched one or a few of them, so I'm not watching those ones again. Let's listen to The Whistling Man, El Silbon. This should be interesting.
Many years ago, in Los Llanos, Venezuela, there was a young boy who lived with his mother, father, and grandfather.
Okay.
His parents couldn't say no to him, so in turn, the boy became incredibly...
Spoiled brat alert. Spoiled brat. So I'm assuming El Silbon is a spoiled brat. Let me guess, he stole some jewels and his parents couldn't say no, so... I don't know,
spoiled. He would scream and throw a fit until he got what he wanted. One day, the boy and his father were walking in the forest. The boy said he was hungry and wanted to eat the entrails of a deer. Desperate to please him, his father went deeper into the forest to hunt one down. But after hours of searching, he returned to him empty-handed. Furious and starving, the boy took his father's hunting knife and plunged it into his chest, again and again. He ripped open his father's abdomen and pulled out his innards.
By the way, I have a bucket there, so... Yeah, I'm not cleaning vomit off my floor, thank you. No. This kid killed his own dad, and now he's ripping the entrails out. What the? Oh, okay.
The boy returned home and threw the entrails on the kitchen counter in front of his mother. "Cook this," he demanded. His mother was suspicious. "Where did you get these?" she asked, hesitantly. "I got them from father," he casually replied. "And where did your father get them?" "He grew them in his belly." The boy's grandfather overheard and decided it was time his grandson learned a lesson. He tied him to a tree and whipped his back until it was raw and bloody. He rubbed lemon juice and hot peppers in his wounds to make them sting. He put the father's remains in a sack and threw it on the boy's wounded back. The boy ran into the forest, but was unable to outrun his grandfather's dogs, who devoured him in seconds. "You should not have done that to your father. I curse you. You will be damned for all eternity." His grandfather's curse had turned him into El Silbon, the Whistling Man. He is doomed to forever roam the plains, carrying his sack of bones on his tender back while whistling his chilling tune. Each night, he enters a different home and counts his collection. If you hear him counting, you won't be harmed. But if he goes unnoticed by the time the sun rises, then someone will die, and he will add their bones to his collection. Hopefully, you're not a deep sleeper. Beware the tune of El Silbon.
Sorry, wrong video.
Epidemic sound filters to help you easily find the exact mood, genre, duration, or pace that you...
Beware.
Alright. This is just fucked. Right. It's thing. Right. Okay. That was incredibly scary. But now let's move on to the next one. I think let's only watch Snarled for this. Because I doubt any story can get as scary as this. Something Scary Volume 1.
Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary?
It's quite nice. Bloody Mary. Oh, this was a classic. So in 2019, my dad went on a holiday, and so did my mother. I was home alone, right? My whole family was just ta-da. So I said, you know what? Let's play Bloody Mary at 3 o'clock in the morning. There was no lights. We had load shedding, right? So it added to the scare factor. Only had a candle. Bruh, this candle went out. I ran out the bathroom and I hid under the covers. I don't even know the
One night when I was 16, I spent the night at a friend's house. Neither of us had tried Bloody Mary before, and we decided that tonight was the night that we would. If you've somehow made it a part of your childhood, Bloody Mary is the urban legend that claims if you stand in front of a mirror in the dark, spin around and chant Bloody Mary 3 times, she will appear in the mirror and claw your face. So, my friend and I went into the bathroom, turned off the lights, lit some candles, and spun around, chanting, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
Right, much better.
We opened our eyes, and there, in the mirror, was a head so covered in blood that it was just completely red. We screamed and ran out of the bathroom and never went back in the rest of the night. When it was time for bed, my friend's father came in to tell us goodnight. Hey girls, he said, are any of you on your period by any chance? No. Why do you ask? Oh, okay, well, there's blood on the bathroom floor, so I'd like you to clean it up when you get a chance, please. The Philippines is full of incredible mythology and fantastic creatures. My grandpa has always been a believer of these myths. That's because he's experienced them. This is what he told me. I lived in a rural town in the Visayan Islands of the Philippines. I was in my mid-20s and working late one night. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I began to walk my way to the bus station, my way lit only by the full moon. I've walked this path many times. I passed by this house that had a dog in the yard that would always bark at me when I passed. But tonight, it just stared and just watched as I walked by.
Okay.
And that's when I heard it. A very strange sound in the distance. I had heard of the tikwi, sometimes known as a wak-wak or aswang. It separates from the lower half of its body to fly around at night, searching for any living soul.
Isn't that like a krasu? Like it's like a floating head with its intestines and internal organs all hanging down below. It floats around looking for blood to consume. Apparently, krasu was born. There are two legends, but the most famous one was that a woman did black magic and then something went wrong and then she separated her head from her lower body.
To rip out their hearts with their talon feet and feast. And when you hear its call, you know it's hungry. So I continued walking towards the bus station and I could still faintly hear the sound. And I saw that there was a security booth with a guard inside. I didn't want to wait at the station alone, so I slipped inside the booth and waited with the guard. I still wasn't sure if I was imagining the sound, but from the look on the guard's face, I'm pretty sure he heard it too. So we both just sat there, motionless. I went out of the booth and onto the bus and rode all the way home, the sounds of the tikwi growing fainter and fainter. The next day, I told my coworkers what had happened, and that's when one of them told me, tikwis are master tricksters. The further away they sound, the closer they are.
Oh, whoa! Holy, check this out. Goosebumps. Yo! Oh my god, like, yo! Imagine that, like, you think it's gone, but then it's actually close. Oh my god, that's like fucking terrifying. Oh my god.
This is a story that was passed around a lot when I was younger, and it still gives me chills to this day. Let me tell you about the man who was a little too curious. I was driving home from a business trip and decided to stay the night in a motel that I found on the roadside. After checking in, I walked down the hall to my room, but on my way I noticed a door that was all boarded up and covered in police tape. As soon as I passed it, I could have sworn I heard someone singing from inside the room. There was one spot of the door that was still uncovered, a giant keyhole, big enough to see through to the inside. So I knelt down and peeked inside the hole. All I saw was this pale little girl singing to herself. It was so strange. Why was she there by herself? Anyways, I stood up and went to my room and went to sleep. The next morning, on my way to check out, I passed the door again. I still couldn't believe what I saw the night before, so I decided to take another peek. So I knelt down and took another look inside. But this time, all I could see was red. Nothing but red. Did she notice me looking last night and cover the hole up with something? It was all very strange. I went to the concierge to check out, and I decided to ask her. So, what's up with that room? The one that's all boarded up? Well, she said, a while ago, a family checked in. A mother, a father, and their young girl. But that poor girl never checked out. Her parents murdered her in that room. Oh, I'll never forget them. They had incredibly pale skin and deep blood-red eyes. So this is a story that my aunt told me happened to her when she was in her mid-20s. She was living in the Philippines at the time, and she had a niece who was a freshman in high school. So one day, the high school called her and said, "You need to get over here right now. Your niece is acting really weird." And my aunt had no idea what they were talking about. And so when she got to the school, her niece was sitting on a chair and she looked really out of it. And if anyone tried to touch her, she would violently hit their hand away and yell at them in a cold, deep voice.
Yeah, in high school, something similar happens. Second, and I'm not gonna say what it is, but and I'm not going to tell who. I'm not pointing fingers, but some students will just dead ass just jump out of the chair and start screaming like they're seeing things, right? Like they're seeing ghosts and shit. It's scary. So I'm a Muslim, right? Proudly. So I just read Ayat al-Kursi and nothing can touch me. But that's just, it's horrifying. It's a very scary experience. Or a scary situation to witness, honestly. Last one I recall, the girl threw a table out the bloody window. It's horrible, honestly. Anyway.
Clearly wasn't hers. So they had no idea what to do, so they called the sheriff of the town to see if he had any ideas. And so the sheriff got there, and it was pretty clear to him that she was probably possessed by something. And so he asked her, "What are you doing to this girl? Why are you here?"
"She hurt my children. She stepped on my house."
"Wait, how is that even possible? Where is your house?"
"Outside of the school."
So there's this Filipino superstition that you shouldn't step on ant hills or termite hills, basically any mound of dirt in the ground, because there's a creature that lives in them called the duende. Duendes are sort of similar to elves or goblins, and they're invisible to most people, but they do show themselves to children or some adults that they choose. They mostly just leave you alone, but if you mess with them, they can bring you a lot of bad luck and misfortune, and in the worst case, death. And right outside the school is filled with anthills. So unfortunately, my aunt's niece did not know about this rule. So the sheriff started pleading with this spirit inside the girl. "She's just a kid. I'm sure it was just an accident. What can we do so that you will forgive her and leave her alone?"
"Get bananas, oranges, and salt and bring it to my house."
So they went to the store and they got a bunch of fruit and salt, and then they placed it all around the anthills that were outside of the school. And then when they went back inside the school, My aunt's niece was totally normal. Like, she didn't even know what had happened. And she didn't remember speaking in any weird voice. She just thought that she, like, fell asleep. My aunt is a super sane person. I have no reason to believe that she would ever lie to me about this. Something that makes this story a little weirder for me is that this is not the first story about a duende that family members have told me. So my mom's side of the family used to live in Hawaii when she was younger. When my uncle was 3 years old, one day he sort of just went missing for a few hours, and so everyone was looking for him. A few hours later, he just showed up at the front door, and they're like, "Where did you go?" And he said, "Oh, I was playing with the little people." So my family is pretty convinced that the little people that he was playing with were duendes. So a few years ago, there was a pretty well...
I fucking hate clowns. I fucking hate clowns. I have a huge fear for clowns.
Family that lived in a really big house in Newport Beach, California. A mother, a father, and 2 small kids. And one night, the parents decided that they wanted a night out for themselves, so they hired a babysitter. She was maybe about 16 years old. So when the babysitter got there, the parents gave her a little rundown of what to do, and the mom pulled her aside and said, "Once you finish tucking the kids in, do you mind watching TV in our bedroom? The kids have been having nightmares lately and waking up screaming, and our room is right next to theirs, and so it's a lot easier to get to them." "Yeah, sure, I can do that." So the babysitter and the 2 small children waved.
That's the thing, right? In 2021, I was a babysitter for a time. A small time. I used to go to Umhlanga. South Africans don't know where that is. I used to go to Umhlanga and I used to babysit. Right? There were these big mansions, right? They didn't have solar panels or inverters. So immediately, boom, load shedding. Now, load shedding, your battery died. You don't know where the fuck you are. You don't know where you are. Right? Kids told me to follow them into the basement. We don't know where to get out. For 2 hours, we were hiding. We didn't know where to go. Right? Then we heard a sound. But somehow, kid found a flashlight. We went to his dad's weapon shed and we're like, who the fuck it is? Meanwhile, the bloody wind. Oh, it was horrifying. But I still got paid either way, so...
goodbye to their parents. So after a few hours of watching TV, it was time for bed. And as she was tucking them in, one of the kids said, "Please don't let the clown get us." Of course I'm not going to let anything happen to you. So she turned off the lights and went next door to the parents' room like the mom had asked. But the second that she stepped inside, she froze. In the far corner of the room was a clown statue. Just a really lifelike, detailed, creepy-ass statue. No wonder these kids have been having
That's not... My girl. That is not a statue. If I were you, I would have ran back to the kids and said, "No, wake up. We got an intruder in the house and get out. Get out of the house." But imagine if she actually got her and there were like more of them around. Whoa. I'm scared shitless of clowns. I am scared of clowns.
nightmares, she thought to herself. So she went and sat on the bed and tried to watch some TV, but she kept looking over at the statue. Was the statue looking at me like that before? It was way too creepy for her, so she decided to go downstairs to the living room and watch TV there until the parents came back. So she's watching some TV for a while, and then her phone rings, and it's the parents just checking in. "Hey, we're on our way home. Just wanted to check in and see how things are going." "Everything's great. The kids are all asleep and in bed. I hope it's okay, but I decided to watch TV downstairs instead. Your statue was really creeping me out."
No, man, come on. Not for the bloody ads, man. What?
Me out. I'm sorry, what statue? The clown statue in your room, it's really creepy, so I decided to leave the room. Get the kids now. Wait, what? Get the kids and get out of the house now. We don't have a statue. Just then, she heard screams. She dropped the phone and ran up the stairs. The bedroom seemed so much farther than it did before. She opened the door. She was too late. So apparently there was a little person serial killer that would dress up as clowns and break into people's houses and murder people. So this story is 100% creepy and true. So my aunt, my cousin, and her youngest sister, Genesis, who was maybe 3 at the time, were in their townhouse in Glendale. My aunt and my older cousin were talking outside of the master bedroom, and Genesis was playing inside of the room by herself. And out of nowhere, they hear Genesis start to scream. So my aunt and my cousin go inside the room to see what's wrong, and they see Genesis crying hysterically and grabbing books and toys and pillows and just throwing them in this one corner of the room. And they ask her, Genesis, what's wrong?
Tell the little red girl I don't want to play with her.
So my aunt and my cousin grab Genesis and they get out of the house and they head to McDonald's to go get a Happy Meal so that they can calm her down. So when they got home, they remembered that Genesis made a huge mess in the room, so they went to go clean it up. But when they went inside the room, everything was already put away. We're leaving again, so they left the house again. So my aunt was telling her neighbor at the time about what had happened and what Genesis said she saw. And her neighbor told her that a little girl had actually died in that complex 15 years earlier. They moved out like 6 months later.
Yeah.
I was maybe like 7 when my cousin told me that story, and
Moved out 6 months later? I would have moved the same time. What you mean 6 months? I'm moving out same time. If I find out there's a ghost in my house, I'm moving the next day, boy. I'll go stay at my parents' house or something. And then I'll leave. I'll just move. Bye-bye. I never knew that house. I'll blow it up for extra midges. No. No.
And I remember being like, yeah, I'm not visiting you guys ever again. I was actually talking to my cousin Genesis about this recently over the holidays, and she said that she actually used to play with that little girl a lot. So I guess that little girl like wasn't always scary to her. I guess maybe it was just that one time she just like didn't want to play with her. This is part of the reason why I don't want kids. Because if my kid started like talking to nobody, I'd be like, nope, I'm out. Have you heard of the Black-Eyed Children? It's not an early 2000s cover band consisting of infants. It's a phenomenon that's been increasing in popularity over the past few years. The basic story is always the same. You're in your house, and then in the middle of the night, you hear a knock on your door. And if you open the door, you'll see 2 young children with completely black eyes. They'll ask if they can come in. Whatever you do, don't let them in. Whether they actually exist or not, this is the creepiest encounter that I found online. This woman made the mistake of letting the black-eyed children in. This is what happened. So this woman and her husband live in a rural town in Vermont, sort of in the middle of nowhere. And one snowy night, they are awoken at 2 a.m. to a really loud banging on the door. So they open the door and they see a young boy and a young girl, and they're definitely not appropriately dressed for the snow. They're avoiding eye contact and just staring at the ground. There was something really uneasy about these kids. And so they asked them, where are your parents?
Not normal.
They'll be here soon. Can we come in?
So this woman and her husband just looked at each other, and despite all of their instincts telling them not to, they decided to let the children in. So the woman went into the kitchen to make everyone some hot cocoa, and her husband went into the living room and was sitting there with the kids and trying to get more information out of them. And that's when she noticed her cat was acting really weird. Usually her cat is really friendly and likes to approach any guests that come into the house. But this time, he just hid underneath the kitchen table and was staring at the children and growling very lowly. So the woman took the hot cocoa and went into the living room, and she noticed that her husband had his head in his hands. I feel really dizzy. The woman went to hand the cocoa to the children, and that's when they looked up at her for the first time. Their eyes were completely black. No whites, just black.
Maybe use the restroom?
And the kids left for the hallway. The woman turned to her husband and said, "Did you see their eyes?" Her husband lifted his head up and his nose was bleeding. And just then, the power went out. She couldn't help but think that the presence of these children had something to do with this. And so the woman stumbled her way over to the bathroom to see if she could get a tissue. And the two children were just standing there in the hallway.
Our parents are here.
So the kids went to the front door, left it wide open, and the woman saw these two really tall men in dark suits standing at the edge of their driveway. The woman waved at them, but they didn't react at all and went in their car, and all four of them drove away. The power came back on about half an hour later, but not everything went back to normal. A few days later, 3 of their 4 cats went missing, and one night they came home to find their cat dead in a puddle of its own blood. Her husband continued to have nosebleeds, and when he went to the doctor, he was diagnosed with a very aggressive type of skin cancer, a type that's linked to overuse of indoor tanning beds, which he's never used. She also claims that she started getting nosebleeds and feeling really dizzy randomly, and even some unspeakable things that she refused to disclose in her story. So this is another story from my cousin, because she's the worst. She was about 16 and she was over at a friend's house for a slumber party. And her friend has a collection of really...
I'm getting bored now, like really, I'm not even getting scared. I am just bored. Like, okay, let's go to something. Let's up the scare factor, shall we? Alright, anyway. I found something a bit interesting within the 5 minutes. I asked on WhatsApp. I might be even my number 21, anyway. So they have a South African urban legend about the Grootsalang. Fuck, my Afrikaans is bad. Anyway, let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Okay. Oh, I like the new intro.
Beware the cave to hell. Deep in the caves of South Africa hide demons that only the brave dare to encounter. The brave, or those who don't care if they live or die. Ina was thrilled to be making her first trip to South Africa. She would be joining 2 other scientists from Cape Town University to research an arid biodiversity hotspot near Richardsfield. Don and Johan, who had been studying the area for a year, said the spot was believed to be magical, and there were rumors of hidden treasure in the nearby caves. As expected, the trek to Richardsfield was very difficult due to the terrain. By day 3, the thin air was affecting Johan. He had been hallucinating and had become paranoid, convinced they were being tracked. Ina followed Johan to the cliff. He took a step too close to the edge and toppled over. As he hopelessly begged for help, he could see something unexpected in Ina's eyes. It was clear she had no intention of pulling him up. He fell to his death just before Adan made it to the edge. Out of breath, bent over, double from running. Adan demanded to know what happened. Ina told Adan that Johan had jumped to his death. He had been driven mad by the journey. Madness was, after all, one of the symptoms of nearing the beast. They'd been warned by the locals. The treasure was guarded by the Grootsalang, a gigantic mix of elephant and serpent that would burst from the bottomless pit of hell to devour anyone that dared to come searching the cave for gold.
I don't know.
But Ina just trekked faster up the mountain, no intention of turning back. As she continued on, a glint of yellow twinkled in her eyes, the glint of something impure, something demonic. Adan thought they should turn back, but he had no choice but to follow Ina, not wanting to be left on his own. He had already lost 1 colleague. He didn't want to lose 2. He continued to call out his concerns. Suddenly, Ina turned and grabbed Adan by the collar, shoving him closer toward the edge. Through gritted teeth, she told him the reason no one who searched for the treasure had returned was because they left the rumors of the devil get in their head and mess with them. Like Johann, Adan just caught his balance before plummeting to his own death. People thought that the closer they got to the gaping cave of hell, the more influence the devil had over them. After witnessing Ina's behavior, Adan was now a true believer. It was clear Ina was under some other influence. But he still didn't want to be alone. They continued on, Adan trailing behind Ina.
Under the influence, you don't know that song. You don't know what you did to me. No? Yeah, you get it. You don't know.
After a treacherous 3 more hours in the beating sun, Ina let out an earth-shattering cry. Adan ran to her, determined to help as she was sobbing, but she wasn't upset. Shockingly, there were tears of joy. She was smiling. Just ahead, she pointed. She was sure she spotted the cave. She pulled out the photos and saw it was a perfect match. The gaping black hole made it look deep, dangerous. Ina actually believed those before had chickened out or lost their minds. She laughed at Adan's cowardliness and told him he wasn't going to get any of her riches when she retrieved them on her own from the cave. He called after her, saying he just wanted her to be safe. She stormed off into the opening, switching on her headlamp as his voice drowned out behind her.
Oh boy.
After walking for about 15 minutes, she no longer saw the mouth of the cave. Instead, she began to see. The place was full of glowing precious stones and gold. No sooner did she arrive, the walls around her shook her off her feet, and the ground cracked open. Through, fiery smoke slithered out the Grusling, 9 feet long, as big as a house. The head of an elephant with sharp tusks at the side of its mouth, and a long serpent-like body. Ina's heart was pounding as the Grusling slid around her. She was so struck with fear, she couldn't even run. It constricted around her body and crushed her bones. As blood dripped out from her nose and ears, she noticed something. Her eyes went wide as if she was trying to speak. She tried to point, but her arms were pinned to her side. Even if they weren't, her bones no longer existed to lift them up. What she saw was Adan. He wasn't even attempting to help her. Instead, he was taking handfuls of jewels and shoving them into his pockets. He headed back out of the cave before Ina even took her last breath. I'm alive, he thought. And I got a few handfuls of treasure.
The yellow light's gonna be in his eyes.
Pleased with himself, he made his way back down the mountain. A glint of yellow shimmered in his eyes.
Ha ha ha. Ho 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 ho. Ho ho ho. Well, that was unexpected. Very unexpected. But, well, I'll be damned. So apparently it's a creature from hell. Anyway, at least we got to end it off with a good horror story. Anyway, guys, this is the end of the road. I hope to see you all again next Saturday. Adios. Like and subscribe. Bye.